Wendell's World in Sports. I'm your host, Wendell Wallace. So glad that you could be with us today, this morning, as I'm recording this on my YouTube page, YouTube channel, Wendell Wallace. Just type in Wendell, Wallace. As always, on my perspective, for doing what I feel I need to do to play my part in terms of bringing unity, harmony, togetherness. I want to say what's up to everybody from all over the world who's listening, who's watching this YouTube video that I'm doing. Bonjour, bonsoir, monsieur, mademoiselle. Je m'appelle Wendell Wallace, Wendell's World in Sports. Que pasa, mi amigos? Mi amo Wendell Wallace, Wendell's World in Sports. Konnichiwa, Wendell's World in Sports. I'm your host, Wendell Wallace. So glad that you could be with us. Shalom. My brothers and sisters, Wendell's World in Sports. I'm your host, Wendell Wallace. So glad that you could be with us. Wassalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters, Wendell's World in Sports. I'm your host, Wendell Wallace. So glad that you could be with us. Everybody on this planet watching this YouTube video, what's going on? Wendell's World in Sports. I'm your host, Wendell Wallace. Normally, when I do my podcast, which is Wendell's World in Sports, which you can find on any place that you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Google, iHeart, Podchaser, Apple. You can find Wendell's World in Sports, Wendell' World in Sports. Normally, when I do these videos, and normally when I do my podcast, I'm normally talking about what's going on in the world of sports, the world itself surrounding the playing fields and the baseball diamonds and the basketball courts and the football fields and the football field and the octagon and the boxing ring and the tennis courts and everything and the like, the ice rinks. And I speak about the impact that it has on the sports, if indeed it does, the outside world, the society that we live in, some of the things that are happening in the society, but they have any effect on what's going on in the world of sports that I try to talk about in regards to how it affects the play, how it affects moving forward, affects the players, the actors, shall we say, that play these sports, what it's going to be doing with them, how are they going to be reacting, and all those type of things. So normally when I talk about sports, I normally on my podcasts and on my video podcast, what I'm doing right now, I normally like just to stick to, what's going on in the everyday sports. I want to talk about week 3 of the NFL that's going to be coming up. I want to talk about the upcoming game 4 in the NBA playoffs between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets. I want to talk about game 4 last night between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics and talk about Tyler Hero scoring 37 points. And what does that mean for the league going forward? What does that mean for the Miami Heat going forward? Talking about how they built a potential championship type team this season, not because they went ahead and got themselves 3 number 1 picks, not because they spent the most money in free agency, not because they had the opportunity for the number 1 draft pick and got themselves a Tim Duncan or got themselves a LeBron James or got themselves that type of franchise, generational type talent. The way the Miami Heat built their basketball team, the way they have their culture, it's a system to where you're going to see other teams start to emulate what the Miami Heat do, their philosophy in building championships, their philosophy in building teams. You're going to see more teams sway away from what first the Utah Jazz under Jerry Sloan, and then what the San Antonio Spurs did under Greg Popovich and R.C. Buford, the way that those guys were, other NBA teams were taking their personnel and taking their philosophy and taking the way that they do things. I think now, moving forward, you're going to see that shift from first starting off with Utah, then moving over to San Antonio. I think you're going to see now more teams start emulating what the Miami Heat are doing, and you're going to start seeing coaches coming from that tree, the Eric Spoelstra, Pat Riley tree. I know David Fisdale has already gotten a couple of jobs as the head coach, Memphis Grizzlies, New York Knicks, but I think you're going to see more people from the Miami Heat organization, whether it be for them to run the basketball operations itself or become coaches for other NBA teams. You're going to start seeing those teams start to try to pick from the tree of the Miami Heat. But we'll get into all of that at another podcast. I'll be talking about that on my regular podcast. But this podcast, I want to center around some of the anger, frustration. I don't know, man. Exhaustion of what happened with the decision not to indict the people who murdered Breonna Taylor. And it was murder. Um, it's another situation where I don't know what we have to do. And I'm speaking about my generation. And sometimes I have to think, and as frustrating as it may be, and as upsetting as it may be, I have to remember that this situation, that these situations that are happening right now in this country that's falling apart, in this country that's unraveling, in this country that's dysfunctional, that this country that is woefully inept to handle anything regarding unity, equality among people. As of this recording right now, September 24th, 2020, the year, I have to remember, even though we're in a place right now which is not good, I have to remember that we must move forward. We must continue to try. We must continue to endure. We must continue to do our best to try to educate, try to have those who are too ignorant, who are too cloaked in privilege to listen, shove it down their throats, and let them know that we're not going anywhere. Let them know that, once again, in this situation, you haven't won. Things aren't returning to normal. Things aren't going to be great again. Regardless of what happens in November, we're not going to stop. We're not going to give up, because it's not for my generation. The protesting, the marching, I'll say it again, depending upon the outcome, November 4th, this country's going to burn. This country is going to burn. This country is going to be decimated. And basically, we're almost going to have to start from ground zero, because the last 4 years have shown us that we're not a united country. There's nothing united about these United States. There's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of foolishness. There's a lot of stupidity. There's a lot of bias. There's a lot of head in the sand. There's a lot of folks who just are woefully ignorant on some things pertaining to race, pertaining to privilege, pertaining to culture, pertaining to gender. So, regardless of what happens November 4th, or even in January, this is going to be a very trying time. We're still in a situation where we're still dealing with the pandemic, and we're not dealing with it very well. We're dealing with folks who don't want to recognize the importance of social distancing and wearing masks and being responsible and using common sense, because they feel that, what's the word that we're looking for? We feel that their liberties are being taken away. Their freedoms are being taken away. They're being compromised. These are the same people who are sitting there and will make excuses for the 4 domestic terrorists who killed Breonna Taylor. These are the same people who will justify somehow, some way, that what the police are doing to Black and brown people, it's not a situation where it's as important, or it's not as tragic, or it's not as dire as those who are being oppressed, those who are being abused, those who are being killed, those who are being murdered, those who are having their civil rights violated. It's not as big as what those people say. Take it from people like us. I've never been stopped over. I've never been harassed by the police. I've never been violated by the police. My life has never been in jeopardy by the police. So why should I listen to what's going on with the police departments all across this country in regards to Black and brown people? They're making it up. It's liberals feeding these folks this stuff. It's being taken out of control. It's black folks playing the sympathy card, the race card, the woe is me card. We've got to change that. And if you're not part of that situation, we got to let them know that this is the world that we're moving to. Now, luckily for them, at a certain age, that you won't have to deal with it. White privilege is still going to remain strong. White privilege is still going to be at a certain point of advantage for those for the next 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years maybe. But slowly but surely, that advantage is going to diminish at the younger generations and the younger generations after that. And the generations after that start to learn, start to grow, start to educate. And that's our responsibility. Everybody's responsibilities, not just Black folks, not just those of color. It's going to be everybody's folks. It's going to be everybody's community to let them know, to let that 15-year-old kid right now know, and then that 5-year-old kid know, and then that 8-year-old kid know that what's going on in this country, what's happening to Black and brown people and poor people in this country is wrong. It's going to have to take effect on them. So by the time they hit my old ass age and they're running this country and they're making the decisions, they're going to have the wherewithal to know that what's going on currently, what's happening to Black people in this country, what's happening to brown people in this country, what's happening to Hispanics in this country, what's happening to gay people in this country, what's happening to women in this country is wrong. The police brutality is wrong. So as much as frustrating as it may be, I'm tired of yelling, I'm tired of screaming, I'm tired of threatening, I'm tired of all that nonsense. Because what we've known now and what we learn now, and it'll probably come to fruition in November, is the fact that certain people are just so selfish enough, the majority, I don't even know the majority, let's just say about 45, 46, 60 million plus people, the majority of them are just like, as long as things are good with me, I don't give a fuck about what's happening across the street. I don't give a fuck about what's happening in the other neighborhoods. I don't care about what the police are doing to other people who are disadvantaged, who are that of color. I don't care. As long as I got my job, as long as I got my salary, as long as I can take care of my family, as long as I got my ability to pay the bills and keep a roof over my head and put a little money in the bank, put a little money in my IRA, save a little money to when I hit 65 or whatever. If I feel like I want to work, I continue to work. But if I want to retire, I can go ahead and retire. As long as the Dow Jones is good, as long as my portfolio is looking fantastic, I don't give a fuck about what's happening in these other. I don't give a fuck about what's happening in the neighborhoods. I don't give a fuck about what's happening to Black and brown people. I don't give a fuck about what happened to Breonna Taylor. I don't give a fuck about what's happening to George Floyd. I mean, I care a little bit. I mean, yeah, it sucks. Too bad. Man, glad it didn't happen to me. Sucks. I mean, that's the deal, but it's not enough for somebody to say, we've got to change the direction of this country. We got to go in a different direction because this shit ain't good. Poor folks who are getting murdered by police officers because they get away with it time and time again. I can't listen to these fucking idiots on Fox News for my excuses on why it was justified. I can't do that anymore. I have to make some decisions. For you jackasses who are talking about defunding the police, if you live in, I'll take my situation out here living in Las Vegas. If you live in Summerlin, if you live in Southwest Las Vegas, if you live in Northwest Las Vegas, if you live in the Highlands, if you live in certain communities in this town that I live in, you don't have to worry about defunding the police. Now, yeah, if you lived on Nellis and Las Vegas Boulevard down in North Las Vegas, you might have that. You might try to make that argument. If you're on Washington and MLK, maybe live in West Las Vegas or some places in East Las Vegas, you might be able to try to make that argument about, well, we defund the police, the murder rate might rise or the crime rate might rise. You could try, you could justify making that type of argument. I don't think that would be the case, but what the fuck is defunding the police in Summerlin going to do? What the fuck if you defund the police in terms of giving them the ability not to murder people unabashedly? What is that going to be doing as far as the impact that's going to be happening in Southern Highlands out here in Vegas, North Las Vegas, going way up in the Flamingos, going way up in Town Center, going way up, past Charleston in the 900 block. You motherfuckers don't have to worry about that shit. You got gated fucking communities out there, man. I've been up there. I've known the obstacles and the machinations and everything I had to do to get in the rich folks' neighborhood. Ain't no way that that shit's gonna be somehow filtrating up toward your area. There's so many gated communities out here. There ain't gonna be no way that crime all of a sudden, because the police department has been defunded and retrained, and maybe they don't have the ability so much to murder innocent black and brown people. There's no way that that element is going to seep into your neighborhood. What you're really gonna be scared of, maybe that would be the reason, if that happened, that you might decide that there needs to be a change. If it starts happening to you instead of happening to folks who, hey, what the fuck, I mean, we folks in North Las Vegas. I mean, them folks down in Eastern and Land Boulevard. I mean, I've been through that neighborhood. I mean, over there on Craig and Nellis. I mean, come on, take a look at the neighborhood. You know that shit's going to be happening like that, this, that, and the other. I mean, the police have to shoot first and ask questions later. Have you been through that neighborhood at night? Shit. I mean, when you have that fucking ignorant, racist, bigoted attitude, so, I mean, so they've got to be, so the police, we got to look out for the police, because, all of a sudden crime will just go through the roof if these criminals in these neighborhoods, in these poor neighborhoods in California or Los Angeles or Seattle or Minneapolis or Chicago or Indianapolis or Miami, or, oh my goodness gracious, and Baltimore and all of these places, if the criminals find out that the police force has been defunded, oh my goodness, they'll go hog fucking wild. Why do you motherfuckers care about that shit? About black folks killing black folks, about poor neighborhoods being infiltrated with crime and drugs and prostitution and things that could bring that community down? Why the fuck are you motherfuckers still all of a sudden, who are living in nice neighborhoods, worried about that stuff? If it defunds the police, all of a sudden those neighborhoods get a lot worse. Now all of a sudden you guys are like, oh, we can't do that. We can't have sakes, we can't do that. Shit, I don't see you guys being outraged or up in arms or doing anything in terms of what happened to George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or any other black person who has been mercifully killed, murdered, executed by the police. What you clowns are scared of is you defund the police, and your ignorant way of thinking is, all of a sudden, oh my goodness, if they defund the police, all of a sudden the crime that's going to be happening in these poor areas, that's going to be happening in these ghettos or whatever, is going to all of a sudden seep up to my community. All of a sudden now, my gated community is not going to be safe. All of a sudden now, my rich area is not going to be safe. Because if the police are defunded and can't properly protect and serve us, all of a sudden these criminals are going to fester from the neighborhoods, the poor neighborhoods that I don't want to have any part of, that I live far away from, that I won't have anything to do with. All of a sudden now they're going to start moving up, and some of the crime elements, some of the things that plague these poor communities, all of a sudden might become a fixture in my community. Well, shit, I can't have that. So hell no, we can't defund the police. I bet you fucking dime a dozen if somehow, some way we could somehow saw off the rich area, the nice area, the upper middle class area from the poor area, you motherfuckers wouldn't give a fuck if the police were defunded or not. If somehow, some way the Lord above can come on down and say, hey, guess what? Don't worry about it. Folks who live in nice areas, folks who have worked hard, folks who have dedicated themselves through education, through hard work, through all of those type of things, to live in an area, to work in an area, to raise your children in an area where it's nice. Congratulations. I'm not angry at you. I'm not mad at you. I understand that you guys want the privileges. I understand you guys want the perks of living in an area where you don't have to deal with those elements, where you can live that utopian society, the American dream, and you guys worked hard for it. You guys did everything that you needed to do. I applaud you. I congratulate you. Those things should come as a reward for hard work in getting your education and getting in a job in an employment area to where you're working to the fact where you can live in a gated community, to where you can live in a place where the schools are fantastic, where you can live in manicured lawns, where you can live in a place where crime is zero, where you live in a place where the police aren't going to harass you, where you can live in an area where the police aren't going to kill you just because of the color of your skin or because of the area that you live. The fact that you have reached a certain financial stature to where, if something does happen to you, if anything did happen to one of your neighbors, if something is happening like that in the community, then you can have the stroke, then you can have the influence, then you can have the impact, then you can have the financial wherewithal to do something, to have somebody connected with, to where, guess what? There would be some true ramifications. there would be some true consequences if the police try to do some bullshit in that community like they do in the poor communities. Congratulations. I'm not mad at you. Hell, I don't give a damn who you are, black, white, straight, gay, fat, slim. Everybody would take advantage of that. Everybody would, quote unquote, play that card. And you should play that card. But don't sit here and talk about defunding the police is bad and this, that, and the other, and then try to, talk about that, and then just turn a blind eye, or for some reason just say, oh, fuck it, what the hell, what's happening down there? I mean, they kind of deserve it. Take a look at that neighborhood. Take a look at that community. Take a look at them people. Take a look at the history of violence. Take a look at the drug use. Take a look at that area. Shame on them. Pour on them. Have a little bit of fucking compassion, man. Have a little bit of fucking compassion. Have a little bit of just like, damn, maybe something needs to be done in terms of these things taking place. Because I also guarantee you this. The former Republican chairman, Michael Steele, also said this. If you don't watch yourself, if you want to put your head in the sand, if you want to ignore what's going on because your 401k is looking fantastic, sooner or later, defunding the police or not, that shit is going to start creeping up eventually to your neighborhood. And we know in certain situations, we know that all of a sudden, when it starts affecting the majority of white folks, oh shit, now it's a problem. Remember years ago when you had all the school shootings in Columbine and over in Arkansas, and white kids were coming in and shooting up these suburban schools and doing all this kind of bullshit? Well, when a school in the inner city, when there was violence and there was nothing like mass shootings like what happens in these white schools in these white suburban areas with these white kids who are just flipping out, and the stupid asses want to go ahead and take a gun and start shooting themselves in the last hurrah to end their lives. They're gonna go out in a blaze of glory, so 20 or 30 years we can remember who they are when they're rotting in hell where they belong. But when the black schools in the black areas, whether it be Detroit or Flint or Chicago or New York City and all these places, when they were facing some of the violence, when they were facing some of the things that are going on, the situation was, well, take a look at the neighborhood. Well, take a look at the kids. Well, take a look at the area. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, those are the things that happen. I mean, you live in that neighborhood, you got gang violence, you got shootings. I mean, take a look at that's bound to happen. If it happens in the neighborhood, of course it's going to creep into other schools. Shit, there's some schools in North Las Vegas, I remember, where you had gang members outside of the elementary schools trying to recruit these kids that they walk home to go to school to join their gang. So if they can do their activities, so if they can go ahead and do their bidding in terms of their illegal activities, what are you going to do? You're going to throw a 10-year-old? You're going to throw a 12-year-old in jail? Of course not. So these guys would recruit these jackasses. I guess they still do. I haven't been back to a couple of the schools which are substituted for years, but there's a reason why there was a fence around the school. There was a reason why, there were people making sure that these kids got home. Because, you would have these gang members and you would have these other folks waiting at the corner to recruit these kids as they walked home. So they can, again, take part in an illegal activity to where if they get caught, don't worry about it. You ain't going to throw a 10-year-old in jail for moving some things. So, all of this stuff that's going on right now, that was the main problem with some of these schools in the inner city, at least in North Las Vegas and other places. But, the violence and everything that happened when it was in the black areas and when it was in the brown areas and when it was in the Hispanic areas and when it was in the poor minority areas, it was like, hey, that's the way it is. That's the way it goes. That's what they're all about. Well, what are you going to do? Screw it. That's just too bad. Then all of a sudden, white folks started acting stupid. Folks started coming in, shooting up their kids, shooting up teachers in a blaze of glory before they left this earth because either they were bullied or they had problems at home or they just didn't like themselves and wrap around those particular reasons with them being fucking assholes. Now all of a sudden, it's like, all of a sudden the nation is up in arms. What are we going to do about this? What's going on here? This is a problem. Oh my goodness gracious. We have these kids. You can't even send your kid to school anymore without them being in danger. Oh my goodness gracious. We got to do something here. This is the problem. Now you're going to react. So when it happens to white folks, now you're going to react. So, you know, maybe we have to start having police officers start going up to these nicer areas and start murdering and killing and violating white folks. Because I guarantee you that this election on November 3rd would be a whole lot easier for a certain side of the party as far as defunding the police, as far as retraining these guys on how to do their jobs. That argument would be a lot easier to make. It would be a lot stronger in terms of putting their man into the White House if this shit was happening to white folks like it happens to black folks. And don't sit up here and talk about, well, the percentages say this and the statistics say that. Whole lot more white folks in this country than black folks. Sorry, can't use that bullshit on us. Can't go there with us. I live in a nice neighborhood. I live in a really nice neighborhood. I live in a diverse neighborhood. I live in a safe neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood where I could walk around the block for miles and miles and miles, up and down, left and right, north and south, east and west. I could do it on a Saturday night at 2 in the morning. I could do it on a Tuesday night at 4 in the morning. I could do it on a Saturday night at 11 o'clock in the evening. I don't have to worry for the most part about, you know, something bad happening to me. But shit, I also live in a neighborhood to where, guess what? It's diverse, but it ain't diverse enough to where if the cops started doing some bullshit like they do with Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and the other folks, that all of a sudden now some of these folks out here with their placards and with the stuff in their lawn talking about a certain group of people need to be reelected, they would be taking a second look if all of a sudden they knew that, you know what, if I drive down the street and make a left, go out the side the gate and make a right, that all of a sudden my life could end because the cop's having a bad day and he could pull me over just because I look at him a certain way, or because I look like a suspect, or I could get murdered if I don't have my hands in a proper position. And white folks all of a sudden had to do the same bullshit that black folks and brown folks had to do. All of a sudden now, defunding the police will take on a whole new meaning in terms of the thoughts and opinions about what we should do with our police departments. You would be seeing a whole lot of changes, not just with the police departments, the police chiefs, the attorney generals, local and national, would look a whole lot different. The conversations would be a whole lot different. So, moving on, man. You know, in this Breonna Taylor situation, you know what? Look, you know, can the NBA go ahead and have another deal like they did with Jacob Blake in terms of we're not going to play, and that started the snowball effect of other sports leagues not having a game, taking a day off in that situation. Number one, is not up to our athletes, but I would love the NFL, which is the strongest by far. I mean, you know, the NBA might have LeBron, one of the global public figures walking this planet, one of the most recognizable athletes walking this planet. He can only do so much. And I believe the NBA set the tone, they set the bar in terms of situations like this. Now it's up to the most, I guess you take a look at all the major sports in this country, basketball, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NFL. I guess you would say the NFL is probably the most diverse of the groups of leagues. In the wake of this atrocity of a decision made in Louisville concerning the murder by these domestic terrorists, which people call police officers, these domestic terrorists who murdered Breonna Taylor, I think it'd be good for the NFL to say, you know what, Sunday, Monday, we're not going to play. What we're going to do, we're going to go down to Louisville, and we're going to show our support for Breonna Taylor and her family. And we're going to get our masks, and we're going to go down to Louisville, Kentucky, and we're going to protest. And we're going to march. And there's some fantastic games this weekend in the NFL. Great games, entertaining games, seasons moving forward, maybe more season-defining games in terms of what are these teams going to be looking like moving down the road, whether they're going to be true title contending type games. No, it's only week 3. No, it's still early. Still, you can't make any definitive decisions about how good or bad a team is going to be this early in the season. But man, there's some really entertaining games, some really good games that I'm really looking forward to watching. This is a beautiful weekend for the NFL as far as the games and the competition is concerned. Dallas, Seattle, the Rams, Buffalo. I mean, it's wonderful games. But if they want to cancel because of the decision, and not just cancel and sit home and just relax. Again, I'm talking about go down to Louisville and show the support for those who are, if the NFL players are going to be, talking about we're going to be marching here or we're going to be doing this, that, and the other. You don't think other folks from the communities of Louisville, Kentucky wouldn't join them? You don't think that maybe possibly that other groups would come down to Louisville, Kentucky and participate in the protest or whatever the NFL Players Association would have? Look, I know it's Thursday when these games are on Sunday, so you would have to do some pretty fast mobilizing, getting together and meetings and discussions and everything like that. You have to, the owners wouldn't like it. It would be interesting to see what Roger Goodell's stance would be. But if you could get the NFL players, and if all of them don't want to participate, fine. But it would be great if, the NFL players could decide, you know what, we're going to not play this week. There's more important things going on in this world, in this country that we're living in. And, we've been through all of these situations. The kneeling that Colin Kaepernick started and what's continuing today, the Black Lives Matter t-shirts, the locking arms in unity, none of those things seem to be working as quickly as we would like. And there's still too much opposition. There's still too much, well, she used to be this, well, he should have done that. There's still too much, as usual, when something happens with Black folks, it's still a matter of, well, it's somehow, some way her fault, his fault. This is the reason why this happened. She was a former criminal. He looked at him mean. He looked menacing. He had a police record. 15 years ago, he did something bad. So the police had to do this. The police had to violate their rights. The police had to murder this guy. The police had to break protocol. The police had to break the rules to go ahead and do this. There's still too much of that. There's still too much of that. There's still too fucking much of that. So maybe this would be a situation, again, where the NFL, the players could move on down for a weekend to Louisville, Kentucky, and what would be awesome would be the reaction of folks who feel that they should just shut up and play football. Or why are these $1 million athletes even caring? Why do these pampered athletes even have a stake in the matter? Why do these guys have to do this? These guys are too woke. These guys are too political. These guys are too uneducated. These guys are too ill-informed to do all these things. These assholes who want to sit there and talk about the only reason why they're in the position that they're in is because they run a 4.240, because they can bench 400 pounds, because they can throw a football 50 yards. That's the only reason why they even have any type of sway. The only reason why they have the feeling, the ability to go ahead and have this type of impact. It has nothing to do with their intellect. It has everything to do with their athleticism. Maybe those people who share those views and sit there and talk about, I'm going to burn my jerseys, I'm going to burn my season tickets, I'm never going to watch football again, these guys are a disgrace, these guys are anti-American, these guys need to leave the country, these guys are too ignorant. All of you fucking assholes who want to sit there, all you bigoted, idiot, white privilege or privileged folks who want to sit there and do that shit, I would love for the NFL players to do that just to fucking piss you off. That would be worth it. That even more than, well, not even more, but that would be even more icing on the cake in terms of the reason why to go ahead and do this. Because maybe it can let you guys know that slowly but surely this shit is changing. This shit is moving in a different direction. We're not playing by your rules anymore. See, all of a sudden now, freedom, opportunity, equality, that's not going to be your decision anymore. It's going to be our decision. And when I say our, I'm talking about everybody's decision. Not just privileged white folks. I'm talking about black, white, Hispanic, Asian, everybody. Everybody's going to have a say. Everybody's going to have an equal part in the definition of what true freedom and equality is going to be all about. And for white folks who have for centuries have defined what we should be happy with, what we should be considered, hey, what's so bad? I mean, you got a black president in there. What the hell are you guys complaining for? Hey, everything's are good. You got black mayors, you got black presidents, you got black lawyers, you got black doctors, you got black folks living in the suburbs. You got black folks living in communities to where 30 years ago they would be burning your house down and putting a cross on your lawn. What the fuck? You're going to school now with white kids who are super rich and all this kind of stuff. Hell, I mean, we even let you guys go ahead and marry each other and turn to black and white. We've decided that that's cool and that's fine for the most part. What are you guys complaining about? What are you guys playing the race card for? What are you guys all up in arms for? Don't you know your place in this country is fine? We have decided that your place in this country is just good enough to where you don't need to protest. Don't you guys realize that A, either racism is over, or B, racism is so minuscule that even when it does happen, you guys should just let it roll off your back? These are the same fucking jackasses trying to rationalize this, who are up there running up to state governments, who are running up to the Capitol with guns in hands, totes ablazing, talking about, I can't believe that you're taking away our freedom and liberties by having us wear a fucking mask. These are the same fucking jackasses who are trying to define, these same people are the same type of people who are trying to define what racism should be for us. These are the same fucking jackasses who are sitting there talking about, this is what we should be upset about. This is what we should placate to. This is what we should be, our space is good enough. They're defining our experience. People on Fox News, people on these other places who haven't been around black folks for, I don't know, maybe forever, who are sitting up there trying to explain to us, trying to define for us what the black experience is, what we should be happy and what we shouldn't be happy with. And then some folks want to wear a Black Lives Matter shirt and go in a couple of marches and then talk about, hey, everything is cool, I'm down with the cause. Nah, motherfucker, if you're down with the cause, go out and fucking vote on November 4th or before with the early voting and do the right goddamn thing. Can't have your cake and eat it too. If you vote for one person, don't sit up there and talk about how you down with Black Lives Matter and how you down with the cause and how you want equality for everybody and how bad it is that black folks are still getting the short end of the stick. And even in 2020, black folks are still the object of oppression and discrimination. Don't sit up there and talk about how horrible that is with us, then go ahead and vote for Trump November 4th or before that. Because if you do, you're a hypocrite and you're full of shit and you're bullshitting. Period. It's obvious now that if you vote for that motherfucker November 4th or whatever, you really don't give a fuck. The number one person that you give a fuck about is yourself, which is fine. But then again, you give a fuck about yourself first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and you really don't give a fuck about what's going on in the country. You can rationalize that. And there's people who are making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars on radio and television who will tell you that what you're doing is the right thing. Yeah, you should be concerned about black people. Yeah, you should be concerned about police brutality in some instances. But, hey, you can still go ahead and vote for that jackass who ain't going to do nothing except make the problem worse if you give him 4 more fucking years. I don't know what's going to be happening to this country in terms of going down the toilet if he's there for another 4 years. But your people are so close-minded, people are so narrow-minded, people are so oblivious, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. So while everything around them is burning, and as long as their 401k is looking good, they got a roof over their head, they can still go to their job, which they like. Good enough for me. I'm down. I'm good. And I can listen to Tucker, and I can listen to Laura, and I can listen to Rush, and I can listen to Lou Dobbs, and I can listen to Michael Savage, and I can listen to the rest of these jackasses kind of placate me to say, yeah, you know what, you are right. It's not your fault, it's their fault. Overhyped, overblown, this, that, and the other. So, good sports good sports podcast today, listening. I want to thank you very much for listening to the video podcast. It's an emergency one. I had to get this off my chest. Now I'm feeling a lot better. Check out me talking sports. I do that on this YouTube channel when time and the situation presents itself for me to do that. I love talking sports. Talking sports is the number one thing for me. I ain't Angela Rye. I'm not Van Jones. I'm not Bakari Sellers. I mean, that's their expertise. I'm just giving you my thoughts and opinions about what's going on in my observations and just living as a black man in America. All I can do is give you my opinions. You want some real, true political talk, and some really good talk, and some really educational talk, and some next level talk. You listen to Jamel Hill. You listen to Bakari Sellers. You listen to Van Jones. You listen to April Ryan. You listen to Angela Ryan. They'll give it to you straight. Me, I'm just giving you my thoughts and opinions about what's going on. Take it or leave it. So, from a black man's opinion, just live in his world, man. Just trying to live day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute. I'll keep holding on like I'm the Doobie Brothers or Michael McDonald. I don't know if he left the Doobie Brothers when he sang that song, but I don't know, whatever. So check out my YouTube channel, Wendell Wallace, Wendell, Wallace, Wallace. You can find me on, I'm all over the place for the most part. I'm not doing too much. Going to improve on that. Find me on Twitter, Wendell Wallace. Find me as far as podcasts are concerned, Wendell's World of Sports, The Wendell Wallace Show, also on Facebook. Find me again, Wendell's World in Sports, anywhere where you listen to podcasts. Have a good one. Stay strong. Learn, listen, learn. Don't give up. For those who are truly in the fight, for those who are truly trying to make a difference, for those who sympathize and agonize and want to do better, don't give up. And that's for everybody, not just black folks, not just for the black community, but anybody with truly love in their hearts and want to see true equality, unity, and harmony, man. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. We're laying down the foundation. We are laying the groundwork for a better life. This is what we can do as God's children, as I believe in the Almighty Being. This is the only thing we can do to validate the reason why He put us on this earth and the plan and the path that He gave us. So, hey, man, if anything else, just say that you're sprucing up your resume for when you hit the pearly gates. You have to talk to St. Peter or whoever to get you interest into the heavens gates. What we're doing now is making sure that we can get a yay, not a nay. All right, be good, be strong. Wendell's World of Sports, the YouTube channel. Peace.